In this lecture, we're going to look at the superficial mycoses. The word mycosis means an infection with a fungus. Mycosis is the singular form, mycoses is the plural form. So superficial mycoses are infections of the very outermost layers of the skin. The first infection we're going to consider is called tinea versicolor. There's another name for it that was used previously that may still be floating around called pityriasis versicolor. It's caused by the organism called Mycoses furfur. Tinea versicolor consists of patchy lesions or scaling of varying pigmentation on the skin. Typically, this appears as pale patches on darker skin or fawn-colored spots on fair skin. For the record, fawn color is defined as yellowish to tan. Tinea versicolor most commonly involves the face, chest, trunk, or abdomen. This organism, Mycoses furfur, is a very common skin colonizer that most of us carry around with us. Typically, though, it doesn't lead to this manifestation of tinea versicolor. The organism has worldwide distribution. It's more prevalent in hot, humid climates. This organism. So here's some shots of tinea versicolor on different skin colors from dark to medium to light. Typically light patches on dark skin. As far as the whole fawn colored thing, I don't know that I see fawn color. That doesn't mean much to me personally, but you do see these spotty areas that are different in coloration from the surrounding skin. To diagnose tinea versicolor, we're going to look at skin scrapings that the doc has collected. We're going to put a drop of potassium hydroxide on a microscope slide, introduce the skin scraping to that, let it sit for a while. Sometimes you heat it a little bit to help the KOH dissolve the background stuff, and then you take a look for the characteristic appearance of this organism. Meanwhile, in the doc's office, he may pull a Woods lamp out of the drawer, which is simply a black light, and turn off the lights in the room and shine a black light on the patient because the lesions from this organism will fluoresce yellow, and that helps him make the diagnosis so that he may never even bother to do a skin scraping. But under the microscope, what we see, budding yeast with septate, sometimes branched hyphal. These septate, somewhat branched hyphal elements tend to be interspersed with these darkened areas, and that gives us the nickname spaghetti and meatballs. Kind of a thing to think about. Think about spaghetti and meatballs while you're looking under the microscope at a fungus. But anyway, that's the catchphrase that's often used. Look for it in a case study or whatever at some point down the road. A tech is seeing spaghetti and meatballs. What's the diagnosis likely? Tinea versicolor, which is caused by Mycoses furfur. Next, we're going to move to an infection that's referred to as black piedra. Black piedra is a scalp hair infection caused by the organism Piedrea hortii. The organism produces hard, dark brown to black, gritty nodules attached to a hair shaft. Inside these nodules are asci, which are sac-like structures. Inside the sac-like structure are 8 ascospores. This infection is endemic in tropical regions of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And these two pictures are showing you the hair shaft that with this black crusty kind of thing wrapped around it, the nodule. In order to diagnose black Piedra, the infected hair shafts are placed in KOH. We've crushed the nodules to open them up to see what's inside, and what's inside are these asci or asci containing the ascospores. This organism grows slowly on sabrodextrose agar at room temp. The colonies are described as restricted, meaning they kind of have that outer edge, and the growth stops at that outer edge. This is kind of to differentiate from all the fluffy, powdery, cottony kind of colonies that we sometimes recover in a fungal culture. They kind of just spread and spread and spread and fill the. We're going to leave black Piedra behind and talk for a moment about white Piedra. By the way, the word Piedra is Spanish for stone. And having looked at those pictures of black Piedra, you can see where the name stone is fairly accurate in describing this situation. Trichosporin baeschelii was the original species name, and we tend to just refer to that species, although there have been 17 different species identified at this point. Typically, we don't go to the trouble in a clinical lab of speciating. But we do want to be aware that some of them are more pathogenic than others. This organism is part of our normal skin flora. However, in immunocompromised individuals, to diagnose trichosporin infection or white Piedra, under the microscope we're looking for both arthroconidia and blastoconidia. On culture media, it grows rapidly and it looks pretty yeasty when it grows on the plates. The identification can be confirmed via biochemical testing. The infection tinea nigra presents itself as black to brownish black, non-scaly macules that occur on the palms of the hands or soles of the feet. The thing that's notable about these lesions is they can look an awful lot like a malignant melanoma. So when the patient presents to the doctor's got to rule out malignant melanoma along the way, until he gets to the diagnosis of tinea nigra. The organism that causes it is called Hortaia werneckii, and this is endemic, once again, tropical areas of Central and South America, Asia, and Africa. By now, I think you're getting this sense that to diagnose tinea nigra, once again, we're going to look at a skin scraping that's been sent down to the lab, collected by the doc. Under the microscope, we're going to see septate hyphoelements and budding cells. Younger cultures may be composed of budding blastoconidia. Older mycelia portions of the colony will show hyphae with blastoconidia in clusters. These produce shiny, moist, yeast-like colonies that start with brownish coloration that turns olive to greenish black. And we'll finish this presentation with some pictures of the skin lesion, pictures of what we see under the microscope, as well as those dark brownish, greenish, black colonies growing on media. And let's finish up with a little self-quiz on these organisms that cause some of the superficial mycoses. So take a look at numbers 1 through 4. And you got some options there on the bottom. Correct response to number 1 is C. Correct response to number 2 is A. Correct response to number 3 is B. And number 4 is D. So hopefully you got all those right. As we finish up this unit, I want to point out that there's something slightly different about the notes this week. We only have 4 organisms and there's a pre-made chart in the notes. And what I did was highlight some of the very most important information on these organisms. You might find that highlighting, whether literal or just in your head, the key aspects of each organism as you study it. Because as we look at each organism, from now to the end of the semester, you're going to get quite a bit of information about each organism, and a lot of it is not particularly distinctive. And so if you try to memorize everything, you're likely to get just kind of all lost in the weeds. So by highlighting the most significant characteristic, distinctive information, that can help you focus on the stuff you really want to commit to memory. So highlighting, I did it for you this time. Just a thought, something you may want to make use of. Bye-bye.